Harley text. Yes, I know it's a bad joke. These are going to be back in another video very soon. So, two things. This video probably wouldn't have gone up yesterday anyway, even if I had noticed that this was up yesterday, because I had to do a deep clean in our bathrooms here, just because it's been so long. And the other thing was I had my nephew over yesterday to help me make a devil fruit that he is going to be in a video about, because it's his devil fruit that he will be explaining to me. But that won't be for a little bit. So that was not going to happen, and I wasn't going to shuck that off to do a chapter review. That probably wouldn't have been to my satisfaction anyway. So you get it today, a day late after the chapter comes out, but whatever. It's not like I have thousands of people waiting on me. For those of you who do wait with bated breath for these, thank you. Okay, so I'm already going to tell you, in regards to the end of the chapter, I'm not going to give you my entire thoughts on everything that's in it, because I'm already working on another video where I will go much more in depth into my full thoughts on the end of the chapter, but I will give you brief thoughts on it, but that'll be much later in the chapter. So, before we fully get into the chapter, there was one thing I did want to point out that is kind of applicable to this chapter. Shuichi Ikeda, who is the voice actor for Shanks in One Piece, for the Japanese voice actor, he is unfortunately going to be retiring from this iconic role in another series in Gundam, and he's about 75 years old, and I don't know if he's going to be stepping away from playing Shanks as well, but he's at least stepping away from one of his main roles. He may step away from playing Shanks as well, but that's not confirmed yet. But given the fact that we learned some things about Shanks in this chapter, and Shamrock, I at least wanted to point that out. So, end of the chapter, we have chapter 1138, and it is titled Harley. And so we start off with the Yamato cover story, and we are kind of just basically finally getting to see fully inside of the Who's Who's hideout that he has had built and where he's been kidnapping people. So it's Who's Who, and it's a bunch of his other subordinates, former subordinates from the Beast Pirates, that were like the cat-themed characters that we saw. And we also see a couple of geisha who were probably kidnapped, because, you know, they mentioned in previous cover pages that, oh, yeah, people keep being kidnapped. That's not good. And now Yamato is being dragged into this to find them. So that's what's going on here. They're all in, like, Wano clothing. They're not in the Beast Pirate garb. Who's Who still has his horned helmet, although I don't remember, are Who's Who's horns natural, or are they just a helmet? I don't remember if he had horns when, like, we see the flashback of him involving Shanks, but I'll double check. But that's what we have here, and assumedly Yamato's just gonna burst in here and knock the heck out of Who's Who and any of his subordinates, save the ones who were kidnapped, the geisha, Minamoto, that type of stuff, save them, capture Who's Who and his subordinates, maybe have Tama help with this and Speed help, to get this all taken care of, and then, you know, Yamato will continue upon his journey. We delve into the chapter basically right where we left off with the last one, with Loki still tied to the tree and being attacked by, interrogated / given a job offer that he's refusing by Shamrock and Gunko, excuse me. So we're getting a lot of that. From there, we see, you know, just in the aftermath of Loki's defiance, and he's just breathing very hard. He's definitely been beat up a bunch because of Gunko's attacks, and he's like, "You're the spitting image of red-haired Shanks. Did you really think I'd just write it off as a coincidence?" And Loki, I mean, like, as is pointed out here and has been pointed out by many people, Loki is tied to this tree. He is not able to dodge any of these attacks. He's probably not able to activate any of his hockey, because I'm pretty sure Loki has probably all 3 types of hockey. He's probably got Conqueror's hockey. But if those are Sea Prism Stones, that does definitely affect one's ability to access their powers, particularly if one is a Devil Fruit user. So it's like Loki is not able to do any type of defending of himself right here. He's talking big, but whether or not he's going to be able to fulfill those promises of going after Shamrock and Gunko and the world and everything else like that will be left up for debate for whenever he ends up getting released. And Gunko and Shamrock are just kind of, walking away, and then Shamrock just kind of turns and, like, is looking at Loki. And Gunko is like, mind your own business. That matter has nothing to do with you. And Loki is just like, you're not wrong, but as he's just like huffing from being attacked so much. A great pirate and a celestial dragon. They're polar opposites. You can't blame me for being curious. Which is basically just like the fan base going like, yeah, you guys look exactly the F alike, minus, Shamrock has both arms and no scars and longer hair. And possibly a better wardrobe. But, it's like, you guys look exactly alike. Now, I don't know if this is confirming that Loki, because, like, his eyes are still bandaged, so I don't know if this is just, like, his observation hockey is so strong that he's able to determine that, oh, you look exactly like Shanks or whatever. So that's a possibility. Don't know. And he's like, anyone would find it strange that you two share the same face. And therefore we get into Shamrock. And he's like, the pirate you're referring to is my younger twin. He went astray. At one point, he did return to the Holy Land, but it seems he grew up too attached to the filthy world of the surface. So this just confirms that Shamrock is the older brother, Shanks is the younger one. They were twins. They were probably both on God Valley, just to throw that in there. 38 years ago, they were probably both there with Garling, and they're getting whatever the heck else is going on for the God tournament, for the human hunting tournament, which is still disgusting. And again, I went over a bunch of these possibilities in my other video about Shanks and everything. This was, I made that video, I think, a little before we fully got confirmed who this guy was. I don't remember if this was up before or after we'd seen Shamrock, or at least before we got the confirmation of who Shamrock, that he was, looked like Shanks. We'll see. Everything still applies. It's just, and that theory still applies. It's just that Shamrock could have possibly been there as well, maybe put into somewhere else. Maybe he was better kept because he was the elder son as opposed to Shanks, who was the younger son. And as is probably pointed out, Shanks is probably not his real name unless there's like some type of like something was written on Shanks or in his like onesie or whatever that he's in when the Roger Pirates found him, that maybe maybe had his name on it or something. I don't know. But so we're getting this confirmation here, which is pretty much what everybody was going for. It's like, yeah, they're probably brothers, least likely chance cousins. Everybody's like, they're clones. I'm like, not everybody is a clone, okay? Stussy, yes. Weevil, probably. All the German soldiers, yes. That doesn't mean everybody else is a clone. Okay. Going into Loki, he's like, he returned. I see. That's funny how I ended up hating both of you brothers. And I thought my grudge wouldn't get any worse with what a family. You bastards, when I get out of these chains. Okay, so going back a second to the whole Shanks went astray. That's obviously he was raised by Roger as opposed to Shamrock, who was raised by Garling up in Marigeois and everything. They also throw in the fact that he returned to at one point he did return to the Holy Land. Now, this is a little bit left up for debate as to when this was. This still does not confirm if the figure that showed up at Reverie was Shanks or Shamrock. That has not been fully confirmed yet. That probably won't be confirmed until we get more of a flashback to that moment, and it's either... I still think it was just Shanks that showed up at the Reverie and talked to the Gorosei. I just think that was the case. I don't think it was Shamrock, but we'll see. I might be proven wrong whenever we get more in depth on that scene. Maybe get the rest of it in a flashback or something with, either we turn, we finally get a full-on view of the guy's face and it's like, okay, he has scars, he's Shanks, talking there about Blackbeard or Luffy or whatever other pirate he wanted to talk about, or we get the better view and it's Shamrock and he's talking specifically about Shanks or something like that. We won't know until later. That could have been the one time Shanks went to there, but maybe not. Maybe Shamrock doesn't even know about that specific visit. Maybe something happened after Shanks fully became a pirate in his own right, and the God's Knights, Garling specifically, and Shamrock went out and they found Shanks and they explained to him who he is and everything, and like, you were found on God Valley and everything, and they do that, and Shanks is like, yeah, I was, what's your point? And they go through that whole explanation of like, confirming who he is. Maybe, I don't know, we'll probably get flashbacks of that whenever we get like Shanks' flashback story. So yeah, Loki doesn't like either brother now. He has beef with both of them, which is just funny. I just like that. It's like Loki got beef with both of the Figureland brothers. So now it can be confirmed that it's Figureland Shanks until it's either confirmed that like Shanks was not his like birth name. It was like something else. And so Loki's still annoyed about this, which is fair. We cut over and we see all of the Loki's animal friends that have all been stabbed by Gunko's arrows, which is just sad. And he's just like, I'll do right. You know what I'll do, right? I'll make it my mission to make sure my buddies are avenged. So again, it's like, if he does end up avenging his animal friends, perfectly understandable. They are his friends. They've probably been his only friends here in the forest for, the last 6 years that he's been tied up and everything, plus before that. And Shamrock doesn't take this the best. He's like, was that supposed to be a threat? And Gunko is just like, Captain, you don't have to. And he's like, I know. And he like pulls out his sword, which we're going to find out in a second is called Cerberus. He's like, he wasn't worth getting my hands dirty over. He isn't worth getting my hands dirty over. So it's like, he's too low on the totem pole for me to even care about this. But it gives me a chance to show off my sword. And yeah, last chapter review, I made a comment that his sword didn't look quite the same way that Shanks's was, that a griffin looks like. I was wrong there. Got better looks at it now and everything. And he's talking to the sword and he's like, isn't that right, Cerberus? And he's holding out the sword, and just the sword, the blade of the sword is just starting to like grow, and it's growing 3 heads and turning into a giant F-off Cerberus that is like smoke coming out of, like, appearing from the sword, which is fun. And Loki is just kind of like, oh, that's not good, is like what he's thinking. So we get to the next page and we see the big full-on version of the Cerberus here. We'll point out, not the first Cerberus we've seen in the story. Everybody's probably going to point this out. There is the Cerberus that we saw way back on Thriller Bark. That was one of Moria's zombies that I felt really bad for. Because it's like, I thought that Cerberus was kind of cute, and I just felt bad for it anyway. So there's that Cerberus that we've seen. We haven't really seen any other Cerberuses. I know that there's like the Blackbeard Cerberus theory and everything that's out there. To be fair, with this Cerberus, we don't know if it is... I mean, like, the two, basic answers is like, This is either a sword, Cerberus the sword, Garling sword, that ate a devil fruit via whatever the method that we don't know about yet for how an inanimate object eats a devil fruit, ate the Cerberus devil fruit, and then ended up gaining this ability, like the Inu model mythical zone Cerberus or whatever. Or it was a Cerberus that ate a sword fruit. Probably the first one is more likely. Obviously, big long history here of, inanimate objects eating devil fruits of some kind. We have, of course, Lasso way back in Alabasta. We have Funkfried during Enislavi and everything. And how they do have their own independent thoughts, because it's a zone devil fruit. If it's, if this is really a zone devil fruit or mythical zone devil fruit, that it has a will of its own. Although I don't know if we've seen beyond something in a video game. I don't know if we've seen anything that is a mythical zone that was eaten by an object. I could be wrong, but I'm not thinking of any off the top of my head. So Loki is having the answer that the question that most of us are having of what the hell is that? Cerberus just grows up, just gets huge out of the sword, manifests out of the sword, and then the Cerberus heads decide to do one better, and their tongues turn into swords. Sure, why the heck not? Of course, he's a God's Knight, it's a magical sword, why the hell not? And it's just pops out, and Loki is not happy about this, and Shamrock is like, it's my biting blade, which I don't know if that's going to be the same pun on that one in the official translation, but I really like it anyway. And Loki is just like, what's with this creepy thing? And it's like, we see that all the Cerberus heads have not the sword blades coming out of their mouths now. It's not their tongues, because we still see their tongues hanging out of their mouths, so it's not their tongues that turned into a sword blade. It's just they manifest a sword blade out of them because reasons. And now their collars that are like spike collars are now spinning, which is just adding more to it. And they are just all aimed at Loki, ready to attack him. And while this has been going on, in the background, Gunko has been using her arrow powers to basically make her and Shamrock a getaway ride or a transport. And she's like, Captain, let's clean up here and move on. And she basically made a bird for them to ride on out of her arrows, which is a very good use of this ability. And Shamrock says scramble, and this is supposed to be not scrambled as in scrambled eggs, but scramble as in in the military term of scramble as in get out of here type of a thing, or let's go, is what's being referenced here, as he is leaving part of the Cerberus behind. It's still connected to the sword with wisps, and it is just aiming at Loki as it's getting ready to attack him. And it just charges at Loki. It fires its heads at Loki, and the three heads disconnect from the body, and they just fire at Loki, and just Shamrock and Gunko were just leaving. Shamrock just hops onto the bird and they fly off, which is kind of funny. And I think he sucks the rest of the Cerberus back into the sword, but the heads still fly at Loki. And it's okay. So the heads fly at Loki. We get Shamrock is saying, feel free to hunt me down anytime. I'll face you then, assuming you survive this. And they're riding off on the arrow bird thing, an aeroplane. Get the joke? That Gunko made, which is kind of cute. I like the head of it is the arrow to show where it's going, which is kind of cute. Show the direction it's going. And Loki's like, hey, and he's like, you got to be kidding me, as the three heads just aim at him, and then we get a double page spread, and the heads just all are aimed at Loki, and they all just fly at him. He's like, if that thing gets me, those celestial bastards, damn it all. And they all just like stab into him. And it looks like they all hit, all three of them look like they hit their mark, which is not good because that's going to be very painful on Loki. And we see the aeroplane flying over the mountains in the underworld, in the primordial world area. And Shamrock is like, total subjugation isn't feasible now. Let's start by taking their children hostage. We'll need an extra person. And she's like, understood. Who should I call? And then we cut away from that and we cut to the Quest Castle, where Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Road, by extension, are talking to the two guards that were in the castle that were knocked out, that were attacked by Gunko and Shamrock, and were then found by Luffy and his group. And one of the giants is like, I'm telling you, it was red-haired. And Luffy's like, liar, Shanks would never attack for no reason. And the guard is just like, it's the truth. I saw him with my own eyes. Red Hair has visited Elbaf many times. I recognized him. So this is obviously calling back to the fact that, Shanks was very recently on the island. We know this. I think Luffy knows that they were very recently on the island as well. Well, Zoro's going to mention that they know this anyway, so we know that. And then we know that Shanks has been to the island a lot. So the giants, of course, know who he is. So that's not surprising. Although, well, Shamrock was hooded and everything, so maybe he didn't end up showing, like, that part of his face to them, so they didn't realize it wasn't Shanks. And Luffy's like, but I know Shanks. He's a super cool guy. Maybe it was just someone who looked like him. Luffy, keep your own thought in mind, because you're probably going to run into Shamrock very soon. And please try to make sure that you keep that in mind. Keep this in mind. It could have looked just like Shanks. Yes, and you're going to find someone very soon who looks exactly like Shanks. Minus a few inconsistencies that you should know. He's like, but Shanks is a cool guy. He wouldn't do that. I was like, I don't know. Shanks has hurt people in the past. He's not against it. It just depends on why they made him angry in the first place. Or who he insulted. And Zoro's like, he just left Elbaf recently, right? Wouldn't it be weird if he came right back just to skulk around? Zoro, you are very correct about this. It seems that both of the guards seem fairly okay. They're a bit worse for wear in the fact that they have been beat up, but they do not look like either of them was killed by Gunko or Shamrock. Just probably, tortured to the point that they've passed out. Well, they tried to get information out of them, but they both look fairly okay because they're both talking. Because one of the other ones is just like, I was shocked. We were wondering what he was doing in the castle. It was shocking. We were wondering what he was doing in the castle. So Shanks probably hasn't... Maybe he's been to the castle once during one of his visits, just to see the damage that Loki had done. Also, just to throw this in there, we don't know if the Roger Pirates ever ended up on Elbaf. And if they did, we don't know if they ended up there while Shanks and Buggy were, with them as, like, apprentice pirates. So it is quite possible that Shanks... has been to this castle before when he was like a young kid with Roger on one of the many journeys up and down the Grand Line, and met King Harald. So that's a possibility. So maybe he wanted to come and see what befell King Harald and everything after what happened with Loki. So that's a possibility, but it's just like, generally speaking, yeah, I don't see why it would make sense for him to come back just to skulk around, as Zoro puts it. And Luffy is just like, even if you were telling the truth, there's no way it could be Shanks. Shanks is always calm and laid back. Him doing something like this just doesn't add up. And Nami is just like off to the side, like giggling at this. And she's like, yeah, you really have faith in him, huh? And it's just like, it's funny. It's just funny on many levels because it's like, oh, well, Shanks is Luffy's idol and everything. Like, we've seen the way, Luffy has, like, learned various lessons from Shanks, particularly with, like, what happened at, Party's Bar, and we see that reflected back later in Jaya and everything. But I like the fact that with this, it's just like, okay, well, yeah, you're not wrong, Luffy, but Shanks has also probably made rash decisions in his life at various points. And he is technically responsible for Barto getting his boat blown up that looked like you. So there's that. And Luffy then he's like kind of yelling at Nami, and he's just like, "You betcha, Nami," and he's like, it'd tick you off just as much if someone badmouthed Telmare. And so I've seen like 3 different translations of this for like what they were gonna do for like Luffy's missaying of Belmare's name. And this one, so the first one I saw was Mormare, which was because the R hadn't been translated into L's. The other one was Melmare, which is probably better. And then this one is Telmare, is like this one. And I don't know if those are like puns on something in French or not, or it's just like Luffy mishearing it or whatever. And Nami's like, it's Belmare, son. It's like, so I like the fact that this implies that Luffy has at least heard Belmare's name a bit more. So way back at Kokoyashi Village, when Nojiko is telling the crew about Belmare and about her and Nami's past and everything, Luffy just kind of wanders off, goes somewhere else. He doesn't pay attention to it. But then later, we know that he ends up by Belmare's grave, and Genzo is talking to him. And it's like, if you ever make Nami cry, I'll come out there and I'll get you. And Luffy has done his best to try to uphold that promise as best as possible. But so Luffy saw the grave. I don't know if he saw Belmare's name on it. So this implies that either he did see it on the grave and he just kind of forgot it because it's been like 2 years, or at some point in time over the last time over the whole time that they've been traveling together, that at some point in time Nami sat down and like told the others more about like her life and everything with like Nojiko and Belmare and everything. I was like, we know that there was an SBS question at some point where someone asked Oda if like the newer Straw Hats know about the past of like the older Straw Hats, the more original East Blue crew and Chopper and such, like how much of each other's backstories do they know? And Oda said something like, well, certain ones are fine with talking about it. Usopp's more than happy to talk about it, and their adventures and everything that they had. And then, because not just backstories, it's also like just adventures that they had prior to meeting the next crew member and everything. Like, does Jinbei, well, Jinbei knows to a degree about what happened in Kokoyashi Village, so that's not a good example. But like, how much does Brook know about like them, like their adventure in Alabasta and Sky Island and everything? And it's like, in one of the filler episodes, he's like reading through like their log book that Nami's probably the one that kept. And he's just amazed by it. So I just kind of take it as like, yeah, they've probably talked about stuff and everything at various points during meals, or just like when they're relaxing out on the deck or something like that. Something along those lines. So I like that. Back into this, I went off on a tangent. That's going to happen again later as well. So back to this. One of the giants is like, so just a look-alike? And it's just like, that or maybe a brother is I think what the other one says. And I think it's Luffy that's like, Shanks' his brother. Well, if he has one, he'd probably be a nice guy too. Oh boy, Luffy, no. That's no. Luffy's like, but honestly, he never talked about his family. I heard that he was raised on a pirate ship from when he was little. And so Luffy keeps talking. He's just like, I figure Roger and Rayleigh were his real family. Their whole crew. Except for Buggy. I love that. Except for Buggy. Which is funny. And then as Luffy is talking, we are cutting back to outside. We get to see like where the mysterious figure that we keep seeing. That's probably the one that we saw on the beach, the one that we saw earlier on when we were getting like the big whole long quote about Elbath, by Louis Arnault. And it very much is like guy in the Casa hat with the black or like with the striped kimono or outfit or whatever that he's wearing with the long hair. Walking, and he's walking. He has now made his way out of like the forest area, and now he's like walking his way up to the castle, because that's like where he's headed. People will point out that it's just like, okay, options are still shaky. Scopper, someone else, Louis Arnault himself, someone else is connected to the Roger Pirates is a possibility. Don't know. That's not revealed here yet. Maybe that'll be in the next chapter. But they're going to point out that it's like because Luffy is talking about the Roger Pirates here, and we are seeing this figure depicted, that they very much might be someone who is a member of the Roger Pirates, who, is Scopper or something about that. And of course, there's the whole thing that's like this person has to be like Colin's dad or something like that, Ripley's husband, who's human, and we just haven't gotten the full-on confirmation of that yet. Looked very much like as everybody's going to point out, looked very much like the picture of the guy who's sitting and drinking with Crocus in like the Decks of the World cover page after the 2-year time skip. So there's that. Cutting away, we cut back to the Treasure Tree Adam. So this is just Frankie's group, which is probably just like him and Ripley, because we don't see anybody else here with their group. But it's like Frankie is talking with Ripley, and they're discussing the Adam tree, the treasure tree, because this is what Frankie was really interested in. And we'll get to Robin and her, her and Chopper and everything at the Owl Library in a minute. But first we're going to start here with what Frankie is doing. And he's like, unbelievable. Adamwood as far as the eye can see, and I thought it was meant to be rare. And he's just laughing about this. And like, we're going to see in a minute the way that Ripley is like carrying him, and she's like carrying him around the waist, which is just kind of funny. Like, this is how she's carrying him, as opposed to like this, like how the rest of the Straw Hats keep getting carried in like someone's hands or whatever. Then again, Frankie is a bit bigger, and he does give off action figure vibes, which is funny. So he's just like, he is amazed about this, because like he had to wait so long for certain times for the Atomwood to even be on the market, and for him to have money to be able to get the Atomwood in the first place, which is like part of the whole plot of Water 7, with him stealing the money from the Mary and then using it to buy the Atomwood, and then of course roundabout way he uses the Atomwood to then make the Thousand Sunny for the Straw Hats as an apology. So yeah, I stole your money. Here's a boat. Here's a really big ship based off of a lion. Also, you're going to make me come with you, so I'm going to come with you. And you're going to threaten my manhood in the process, so I'm just going to go with you now, type of a thing. So there's that. From there, we have so it's like, he just had to wait so long for any of this Atomwood. Now, it's not confirmed if the Atomwood that the Sunny is made out of is from Elbath. We know that the Atomwood is a type of tree, and that this tree here that Elbath is basically made out of is a Atomwood tree. Is one of the Atomwood trees. It's probably the biggest one in the world. And it's probably like the spawn point, basically, for a bunch of the other ones, where like any of the other ones that are out in the world somewhere probably were either transplants of like saplings or something from this thing, or like seeds from this Atomwood tree, from this tree, were taken and planted somewhere else and grew up as well. And given how freaking big this tree is, it has been here for probably tens of thousands of years, if not a million, depending on stuff. So Ripley is just like, I had no idea it was so valuable overseas. She's like, maybe I should start selling some on the side. And she's just like laughing about this. And Frankie is just like, weren't you sent here to keep an eye on me? It's like, Saul seemed pretty strict about it. He was all like, it's a sacred tree, bucko. Don't go cutting it down now, you hear? And Ripley's like, you sound just like him. And then Frankie's just like, I guess stealing from under the noses of the giants is a tall order. There's a joke there somewhere, I'm sure of it. And he like jumps down out of Ripley's hands and he's like, maybe that explains the markup. So again, we don't know if the stuff from the Sunny if the Adam would use to make the Sunny is from this tree or not. I would like it if it is, because that's just, connects the Sunny back to Elbath in a nice roundabout way. And helps tie Frankie's story into that as well and everything, and the Oro Jackson possibly. But we don't know exactly. That's not 100% confirmed here. That would probably have to be something that like Oda confirms in an SBS or something like that. But we do know that since it's really hard for the Atom Wood to end up on the market, that it's really, really expensive. We know this. And I like that Ripley's joking about like, I could sell some of this and make a good chunk of money on the side. I'm like, probably, but I don't think you will. I love Ripley. I have no idea who they're going to have voice her in the anime, but I love her. She's great. And Frankie's just like, he hopped down and he's like, looking at something. He's like, what's that? It's a mural. And she's like, what? He's like, what's that? And he's like, look it over. And Ripley goes like, it's a mural. And they make their way over to the mural. Frankie's like, what's that over there? They get over to it. And Ripley's like, oh, it's a mural. She's like, it's graffiti from eons ago. Some kids probably etched it right into the bark and it got fossilized. It's now designated as a cultural heritage site, thanks to its enormous historical value. And Frankie's answer to this is like, is a punk's doodle that big a deal? And she's like, it's said to date back somewhere between 900 and 800 years ago. And Frankie's like, if that's true, and then Ripley just comes out and says it was like, that it would place it right in the middle of the Void Century. And Frankie's just like, what? And I love that his first answer to this is, we gotta show Robin. She'll be thrilled. I love that that's Frankie's first thought here when it comes to the mural. Because I love Frankie and Robin as a couple idea. I ship them. But the other thing is, like, I love the fact that it's like the other Straw Hats are all aware of like each other's dreams and goals and stuff like that. And like Frankie would be saying the same thing about this as it's like, oh, Poneglyph, I have to show this to Robin. Or, oh, something else that has historical value, I have to show this to Robin. Or I found a really cool recipe, I have to give this to Sanji. Or I found a really cool sword, Zoro will like this. Or I found gold, I better tell Nami or she'll get angry at me. Something like that. I found a bunch of musical instruments. Brooke, I found you fun things. Usopp, I found you ammo or something like that. So it's just like, Chopper, I found you doctor books or doctor supplies or something like that. So it's just like, I love the fact that they're all kind of in tune with that, where they're just like, oh, we have to show this to insert name of whatever Straw Hat that thing applies to. I found a giant pile of cooked meat. I'm going to go give this to Luffy. Variation of whatever. I was trying to think of what would go along with Jinbei for that one. I'm like, I don't know. Jinbei and Zoro both like sake and booze, so maybe just like if they find booze, like let's go give this to Jinbei and Zoro. That'll work. But like, yeah, he's like, Frankie's like, something with historical value. Robin needs to know about this. And he's like looking up at the carvings, and we get like a little hint of the carving at the moment. We don't get the full picture yet. That'll be at the end of the chapter. But he's like, hey, ain't this drawing kind of odd for old Elbath? Not all the figures look like giants. And Ripley is like, quite. As far as we know, there were definitely times when the races of the world clashed, but this kind of coordination is unheard of. And we get a look at a couple of the figures. One of them looks clearly like it's supposed to be like a mermaid princess. One of them looks like it's pretty similar to Emmett, the giant robot from Egghead. And then the other one looks like an odd creature with like funny ears. It's not a mink. There's a mink thing very much in the mural that we're going to see in a minute, or that we're going to see in a little bit. So it's not a mink. Um, but so Frankie is just kind of like amazed by this, and we're going to cut away from him for a minute or in a second, but Ripley's going to continue, and she's like, that's why I think it was probably just some kid's dream. So the way that Ripley is framing this in her own mind, because she doesn't know exactly, she knows about the Void Century, possibly because of Saul, possibly because it's something that has been talked about on Elbath before, even before Saul showed up. That's a possibility. We're not sure. But the way that, for Ripley, the way that she's phrasing it is like, this is just, all of these different races working together instead of clashing against each other is something that just seems kind of unheard of, with like different groups all working together against a single enemy. In this case, for like the way that Elbathians think possibly, is like, that just seems a bit unheard of. So she's like, so it has to just be like a kid's dream or something like that they thought of, that this was just like a fun fairy tale or something like that. It's kind of what Ripley is probably thinking here. We cut to the Walrus School, where we see Angie, and she's with the kids, and she's like, class is in session, everyone, listen up. And they're like all, reading or talking or whatever and running around. So, going back to Shamrock and Gunko for a second, they are probably on their way to get to the Walrus School, and they're probably going to take a bunch of the kids hostage along with Angie and try to use them as, bait or whatever after they get whatever other celestial dragon God's Knight coming to help them. However that ends up going. But we'll see how that happens. Colin is probably in the school. We don't know. Colin was down at the village. For the celebration. So Colin's not here. A lot of the other kids that we saw are here, but Colin is not. So that might be something that affects later. Or Colin might end up being the one that gets taken hostage, depending on what direction Gunko and Shamrock end up taking. And also they may not know exactly where the school is yet, so they may have to find another place where they can go to at the moment that's open enough for them to be able to use like the summoning circle to call in whatever other reinforcement they want. I was trying to think of like who would be, because we don't know what the other God's Knights looks like. We saw like flashes way back during God Valley of what a couple of the God's Knights possibly look like, but we don't know how many of them are still alive. And we don't know what any of the other current God's Knights look like, so maybe it's going to be someone who's like really good with like kids, so they can try to like coerce the kids or something. Or it's someone who has like a good ability that can be used for like trapping the kids or something. I mean, Gunko's ability would be probably pretty useful in that regard, but they might need something that's more used to dealing with like larger opponents in bigger groups, possibly. So we'll see what happens with that. Now we're going to cut to the Owl Library, and I actually had something here about the Owl Library that I kept wanting to bring up, but I never did. When in the chapters we were first introduced to the library. So, who remembers the Magic Treehouse series? When I was first reading through the chapters where they were talking about the Owl Library and everything and introducing it and everything, one of the things that popped into my head was the Magic Treehouse books, because that is very much what this thing looks like and reminds me of, by Mary Pope Osborne. And this thing came out in 1992 is when they first started coming out, and they ran for a long period of time. I don't know if they're still publishing new ones or if they're just doing reprints of older books with like maybe updating them a little bit. And there also was an anime series about the Magic Treehouse that came out in 2011 that I'm like, okay, that seems kind of interesting. But like, I at least wanted to point that out because I kept forgetting to point that out but previously when we were talking about the Owl Library. But I'm like, well, we're back at the Owl Library now, so it's applicable here, so I'll bring it up. So we cut back to the Owl Library, and we cut back inside. And Robin's like, so this is the Harley And Saul comes over, and he's got like this giant book that like we can't really see the cover very well, but it kind of looks like it has like the sun god symbol on it with like, you know, like what's on Nika's shield, with like the 8 circles around the outside and then the circle in the middle, so it looks like a sun type symbol, very similar to the Alabasta flag and very similar to the cross, sun cross thing in Kuma's church. So he's like, yep, and he plops the book on the table, and he's like, and Chopper's like, whoa, it's so big and old and dusty. And Saul is just like, this pretty tome here preserved many of the rich myths and legends of Elbath, although it spanned countless interpretations too. Although it spawned countless interpretations too. And so he's like showing them the book, and he's like, that's why all the warriors of Elbath believe in very different versions of the sun god. Ain't that the funniest thing you ever heard? So this is again calling back to not the previous chapter, but the chapter before then, where they were, or the chapter where they were talking about like the sun god is a destroyer, the sun god brings joy, the sun god brings liberation and stuff like that, like the different versions of the sun god. Now, given the fact that in a lot of mythology, lots of gods are very mercurial beings, where they'll be like, I'm going to do what benefits me the most, or I'm going to do this because I find entertainment in it. Which is very much the way that Loki and other trickster gods tend to work in different mythologies. Hermes / Mercury in Greek / Roman mythology, and other trickster gods like Anansi and Coyote and stuff like that. There are various types of trickster gods. Or they're very mercurial. Even Zeus and the other gods are very mercurial in regards to like, you have pleased me today, therefore I will allow you to survive, or I will give you a chance to survive, or you entertain me, I will send you on a quest to find something, to find me something, and then I will reward you with it, or whatever. You know, they're very, you know, like, go with the wind and do whatever the heck they want, because they're gods, so they can do that. So that's kind of why there's like this reference here. And of course, Robin and Chopper are not down at the banquet, so they're not kind of learning about that side of it, they're learning about it here from Saul. So we're kind of getting like, you know, information flowing both ways here. And Robin's like, may I read it? And Saul's like, of course, dear Shishi. And he's opening the text to her, and he's like, the narrative is split into 3 distinct sections. It's said that the third world refers to the present day, meaning it's a type of prophecy. And he's like, mind you, legends of Nika have spread silently all over the world. The only thing they all have in common is that he appears with a booming laugh to this beat. And then he starts doing the do 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 do, you know, the whole Nika dance thing that we have seen several times already with the way that Kuma and Bonnie and stuff dance. And of course, this reference to like it spreading silently all over the world is like, you know, Kuma and the Buccan, you know, Kuma knows about it, and he's talked about it a whole bunch on Sorbet and everything, you know, because Bonnie knows about it, and I'm pretty sure like a bunch of the other ones that are on Sorbet know about it. Because of Kuma, the slaves at Marijois know about it, because that's been passed down there through them for generations. There's been various things where it's just like, various cultures that we've seen in One Piece have had some type of like a sun symbol. Sometimes it's depicted in a tattoo, sometimes it's like the Alabasta flag, different things like that. And you know, there's like the conflating it with like the legend of Joy Boy, and then it's like, was Nico a real person / Nika being a god and everything, plus just like the sun god title and the god of liberation and everything. So we have it, you know, so it's like Saul's kind of like doing the dance. And bear in mind, we don't know overall how many pages this is showing, but like in a second we're going to get it flipping through like 3 different sets of pages as Robin is reading it. So she's like, I'll read aloud then. And she's like, the first world, the earth burned in endless flame, and in the hearts of men. And like as she's reading, Chopper is just like, ooh, story time. And then we're seeing Frankie face as he is looking at the mural, and we're going to see the mural in a second. Frankie is looking at this mural that even his size compared to him is still huge. And Frankie is just kind of, oh boy. Frankie actually looks a little bit, I don't know if terrified is the correct word, but he looks in awe. That's a good word for this. He looks in awe as he is looking at this mural, which then we get to the last page of the chapter, double page spread, full double page spread. And we see this beautiful mural. This is going to look amazing whenever it gets colored in the manga, and then we eventually see it in the anime. This is going to look amazing. It looks amazing now. And we see this, and like the top part of the image is the three worlds that we're going to go through in a second for what they say, and then we have the mural at the bottom, and then we have Frankie standing in front of the mural in the middle of it as he's like looking up at it. So I'm going to go through the three different worlds, and then I'm going to go through some of the stuff that's in the mural. And as I said, I'm not going to give my full thoughts on everything that's in this mural at the moment. There's stuff that I'm going to point out, and then I'm working on another video right now. I'm going to wait until we get the official translation on Sunday before I do the video to make sure that I have the right translations for this stuff. Because even just between this one here and the one that was up yesterday, there's already been a few changes. So I'm going to have to go through and like double check that. And to make sure that I have the correct translations of stuff. So, and also bear in mind, I do want to point out something here with this. Just because what Robin is reading is thoughts about these three different worlds, the world's was around, then it destroyed, around, destroyed, and then we're in like the third one. That doesn't mean that everything that is said here is being depicted down in the mural. I want to point that out because a lot of it is going to be like connected. I am quite certain of it. But just because it's talked about up in the text doesn't mean that it is depicted down in the mural. So, the first world. The earth burned in endless flame, and in the hearts of men burned with desire. From whispered prayers, the sun god rose, beckoned by the enslaved who reached for the forbidden star. The god of the land was enraged, and with a serpent of fire, they cast the world into ruin. Darkness fell, death reigned, they would not meet again. The second world. A breast stirred in the abyss. The god of the forest wove their magic, nurturing its devils, while the sun lit the members of war. Those of the half moon and full moons dreamed. Yet the ones who slew the sun defied themselves, evoking the wrath of the sea god. They would never meet again. The third world. Chaos reigns. The world drifts in a void. Yet time does not ease the memory of the promised day. Its shadow looms as the voice of the half moon echoes through the ages. And once more the sun god shall rise, laughing, dancing, guiding the world to its final act. The sun is reborn. The new dawn will break. Surely this time they will meet again. Okay, yeah, that's a few different shifts in how it's said in the first translation that I read. Hence why I want to wait for the official translation, because something might get shifted again. So, as I said, I'm working on another video. I'm going to break this down a lot more. But just overall, the mural that we are seeing, considering that Ripley said that it was drawn during the Void Century, is probably depicting things that happened during the Void Century. And on one side, on Frankie's right side, we see what is, we don't know if all of this is like everything happening on this side is good and the other stuff on the other side is bad, or like this is like the world beforehand and the world after. But we see what look like buildings being destroyed. We see what look like a sea king and a dragon that are fighting. We see something that looks like the Ark, Noah, that is down in Fishman Island. It also has animals in 2x2 and an angel. Very biblical sounding there. We see another boat that looks like the Ark Maxim that has what looks like lightning coming out of it. We see the moon. We see what look like people holding what might be like maybe stars or something. I don't know, since we don't know what it's going to look like until it's in color. But there's that. And then we cut to, there's like a tree in the middle that is dividing it. And then we cut to Frankie's left-hand side as he is looking at it. And we see what clearly looks like it was a giant battle or a giant war that is being depicted here, where on one side, on the far left, we have this giant demon-looking thing that has like, you know, evil horns and wings, and has a couple of like forces in like a boat that look like they're fighting for it. And this thing has like a sun in its hand. Now, that might be the Mother Flame. This creature is probably supposed to be a depiction of like Emu, possibly. The ones that are on its side might be the representatives of like the original 20 kingdoms, the founding world government founding kingdoms. And then we have on the other part, fighting against the demon-looking thing holding the sun, we have, in not particular order, we have what looks like a Sulong mink. We have what looks like a whale that has two possible humans standing on top of it. That's probably a reference back to the island whales like Laboon and his type. We see what looks like a creature that's probably supposed to be a Lunarian because it looks like an angel with a flame. We see what is clearly supposed to be a depiction of Nika with like the shield and the sword, like the stretched out arm holding the shield, holding the sword. We see what is looks very similar to Emmett. That was one of the carvings that we saw earlier. We see what looks like a giant that is representing possibly like the ancient giants because it has like the horns coming out of its head, and it looks bigger than one of the other things depicted as a giant, and a little more ferocious with the way that like its hair looks, and that looks similar to like Orz's or Little Orz Jr.'s hair. We see what is supposed to be the possibly a mermaid princess. We see what is supposed to be clearly a Tontata. We see what is supposed to be possibly like a regular giant. Well, regular giant is in like more like the regular giants that are on Elbath, not like the ancient giants that were like Orz and Little Orz Jr. type of a thing. And then we see the other thing that is like the other creature that was showed earlier that we didn't quite get a full good look at it yet, and it kind of looks like it's a mink, but it's not in Sulong form, so maybe it's like a Zoan or something like that. I don't know, but we can't tell. And then we see lots of boats there as well. One of the boats looks like it has like the Alabasta sun symbol on it, so that might be like a boat from Alabasta. And then underneath that one, there is a boat that looks like it has like samurai on it because like they have like a top knot in that regard. And then there's other little boats as well that have people in them, but we can't get a good enough look at the people detail wise to be able to tell if any of them are like a representative of the Cujo or the long arm or the long leg or the snake neck tribes or the three-eyed tribe, or possibly the fishmen some here. I mean, like they have the mermaid princess, so that's kind of representing like the fishmen and everything, the fishmen and the merfolk. But like the Skypeans and Shandians and Bjerkids, the rest of the sky races that are not the Lunarians, like are they being depicted here? So, and like the whole thing, like around the bottom is like flames painted in around the bottom. Painted in with the picture and everything that's like engulfing the whole thing in flames, because it's just like everything is just being destroyed, and there is you know, like this battle going on with like all these different forces joining together to fight against this other, you know, ungodly or otherworldly force that has entered the world. So there's a lot there to break down in that bit there. As I said, I'm going to do, I'm working on another video where I'm going to talk about this specifically. But as a hint to that, one of the things that when I was looking at this, and like reading through like the prophecy, or like the three world type thing, and like looking at this mural and everything, the thing that really hit, or the thing that I connected it back to, was Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, because that movie itself takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, and we have now learned that at least in one sense, One Piece is taking place in a post-apocalyptic world, because we know that the Great Kingdom, that prior to like 800-900 years ago, that there was all of, that they had this amazingly advanced technology, and then there was this huge war, and then a lot of that technology was lost. And then that's why, Vegapunk and stuff was like rebuilding it and everything, and making everything on Egghead, to make it like an island of the future, but it's actually an island representing the past. So there's that whole bit in that regard. But like, because there's so many things that get like referenced in like these lines here, like the half moon people and the full moon, and the full moon's dreams, like are the full moons representing the minx, and the other stuff is representing something else. There's stuff here that's like, and nourished its devils, like the forest god nourished its devils, like is that a reference to like the devil fruits? And then of course like we get like the earth god and the sea god and the forest god and the sun god represented here, and those are like even calling back to like way back in Skypiea, when we're getting the flashback in Skypiea of what happened with the Shandians and Nolan's group, and how they were going to sacrifice Moose, Kalgra's daughter, to Kashikami, who was Kamikashi, whichever one, the giant snake god, that they were going to sacrifice Moose to the snake god, and they are invoking the names of like the god of the rain, the god of the forest, the god of the earth, the god of the sun, and everything. And so it's like those are like being invoked here in like these texts and everything, and it's just like, what are certain things here that are being called to? So it's just like a bunch of that stuff I'm going to look a little bit more into and kind of see what I can like piece together from this, and then double checking translations and everything once the official goes up, and then I'll be working on that video on Sunday, and hopefully it will go up sometime, maybe Sunday evening or something. We'll see. But we're not supposed to have a break next week, so we're supposed to get another chapter, which is going to be fun. And I even like the editor's note here is just like, a deep mythology unveiled. It's just like, yeah, yes, it was. Thank you for being very obvious about it. But so I just, there was so much going on in this panel that I'm just like, okay, I need to process this a bit more. And I've been like looking into other things and stuff like that in that regard. But it was like some other stuff that I was thinking about anyway, and I'm like, I can tie it into this thing. So that'll possibly be up sometime Sunday, if not Monday, depending on how long it takes me to get the video done. So we'll see about that. And also, I have not watched anybody else's review before recording this, because I didn't want to, because I don't want theirs to influence my review, and they might find something that I missed, and like they might find something in this thing that I missed, so that might get something that I point out in my other video later, because I'm sure other people are going to be doing videos breaking down this. I'm sure Teching will, I'm sure Grand Line Review will, O'Hara, Library of O'Hara, all of that stuff are probably all going to be, breaking down this stuff very, very, very in detail. But this mural is gorgeous. I wanted to find something in one of my other, because like I have a bunch of history books and stuff like that. I wanted to see if I could find something that has like this type of a mural in it, but I'm like, I have no idea which book to even start with for that idea. To try to find a mural that would be anywhere like as amazing as this one. I mean, like even in our own history of Earth, of humanity and everything, and even predating humanity with Neanderthals and stuff like that, that they had like cave paintings and stuff like that going all the way back for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and everything. So there's a lot of that there. And that stuff's going to be some of the stuff that I bring up in the other video as well. But like, there's lots of different murals and stuff like that from our own history that is like very representative or very reminiscent, or this is very reminiscent of those, for like showing lots of this different stuff happening at the same time and everything. And her like one thing is like shifting into another, and like the tree that's in the middle of this image, it could be the Adam tree that is the Elbath tree, it could be the Eve tree, the Sunlight Tree Eve, it could be a different tree, it could be the Tree of Knowledge at O'Hara. We don't know. It could be a completely other tree that got destroyed during this battle or something, and we just don't know about that tree yet because it's not something that's been brought up. But this is gorgeous, and Oda gave us a lot to feast on, and there's supposed to be another chapter next week, I think. I'm pretty sure that there's supposed to be another chapter next week, so we'll see what's going on with that. So that's what we have here for this. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. As I said, I'm working on another devil fruit thing with my nephew, and he'll come over and eventually we'll record for a video for the devil fruit, so that way he can tell me about it, because it's his devil fruit that he's designing. I'm just helping him kind of make the perler bead version of it, so that way he can have it in the video as a prop. So we'll get to that eventually, but we'll see when that happens. So that's what we have here for this. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.